the mountains of Western Mass,
the sunny sands of Cape Cod,
and the hidden gems of Boston.
Around every corner, there's something to enjoy in Massachusetts.
But climate change could alter our state forever. Ahead, we explore what penguins are revealing about the warming sea.
Wastewater in our oceans, and the shellfish working to negate its effect.
We head back in time and compare notes with the 19th century to see what the past explains about our climate future.
And rising sea levels in Boston, the reality and challenges we face in the years to come.
That and much more
in WBZ's Earth Day Climate Special. Cheers.
All right, time to hit the sky.
I realized that maybe I can do something.
Hi and welcome. I'm meteorologist Sarah Robleski.
And I'm meteorologist Jacob Wycoff. Every year, the threat of flooding continues to rise in New England.
But as we found out, Boston is on the forefront of this issue, developing creative and environmentally friendly ways to adapt.
Our oceans are rising, our beaches are being ripped away, houses swept to sea, and here in New England, there is reason for immediate concern.
We are experiencing rates a little bit faster than other parts of the country, just because our land is sinking at the same time the ocean levels are rising.
Receding glaciers have been contributing water to our global oceans for tens of thousands of years, and they haven't stopped.
Specifically for Massachusetts, we've had about a foot of sea level rise over the last 100 years, and really we're probably going to see about that much again just over the next 30 years.
After thousands of years of relatively stable sea level, rates have increased dramatically and are expected to continue, like a hockey stick since the 20th century.
What that means is, one, just nuisance flooding, so that's just higher high tides, not necessarily associated with a storm. So areas that, would see a flood event every 10 years, you might be seeing that every year. And other areas, you may be seeing it multiple times a year.
More flooding like this on a sunny day in Boston during a king tide. Walkways inundated with ocean water, and it's a likely scenario moving forward as the city is home to 47 miles of coastline.
I think Boston has been very forward-looking. Our state is one of, the top tier of actually acknowledging and attempting to address these climate change impacts.
Climate Ready Boston. It's the city's initiative since 2016 to plan and prepare communities and neighborhoods for the long-term impacts of climate change, including sea level rise and coastal flooding. While a number of projects are in progress, Langone Park and Popolo Playground in the North End is one of 3 completed projects within the Boston Park system that use the new design standards.
This multi-million-dollar project renovation included raising the harbor walk and fields to get out of the flood zone, but also adding an extra layer of flood protection, creatively making this sitting area structurally sound, a seawall to prevent flooding.
It gets really difficult when we get up in that high density, high developed area. Especially a lot of our coastal cities were built on top of marshes. They didn't have the elevation, fill got brought in, and now you've got kind of the double impact of dense development in a vulnerable area, and additionally those marshes aren't there. Those marshes used to absorb some of the floodwaters coming in.
Another possible nature-based solution? The Emerald Tutu, a hopeful future choice for green infrastructure. It's a floating wetland that would function as a marsh without being a marsh. The idea of a Northeastern professor and collaborators like Louisa Wise.
Is a network of floating marsh mats. They're interconnected and they're in the near shore environment off the coast, and they work to dampen the wave energy as they approach the shoreline.
Each module is about 7 feet in diameter and 3 feet deep, compressed and planted with a smooth cordgrass to be really hardy and natural in the coastal environment. The interconnected floating mats can be arranged in a way to protect urban coasts like Boston from sea level rise and intensified storms.
The long-term vision is to see thousands of these along the coastline. That'd be really amazing, just to have the harbor dotted with these tiny little floating marsh mats.
1 foot, 2 foot, 3 feet, they're all going to happen. It's just when they're going to happen. If we can make choices as a society, as a world, to try to slow down that rate of sea level rise, the impacts that we might see in 50 years might take 100 years, and it's a lot less expensive and less painful to adjust over a longer time frame.
Cape Cod's population explodes during the summer, with thousands enjoying the Massachusetts beaches.
But with all those people and a rise in full-time residents comes more human waste. Waste that's finding its ways into our beloved waterway.
The result? Harmful bacteria in warming waters.
An overcast and foggy day on Cape Cod. Our journey begins along the Mashpee River to find muck that's choking the life out of this once healthy ecosystem.
The pollution here is primarily nitrogen pollution, which is coming directly from our septic systems.
The town's Department of Natural Resources Director, Ashley Fisher, says these waters have been on a steady decline since the 1980s, when the Cape became more of a destination. Homes were built, but never a sewer system. And that has led to harmful nutrients from wastewater seeping into the river.
Back in the 60s and 70s, there was a summer camp in the Mashpee River. There was sandy shoreline, sandy bottom. People were able to swim. All of the nitrogen that has come in year after year, and these algae blooms that have set year after year, it's accumulated to almost 8 feet of this muck.
I put on waders to get a first-hand look for myself and realized the problem right away.
What am I stepping into? This isn't a beach. This isn't mud. It feels different. What is this?
So this is what we call algal flock.
Decades of algae blooms have sunk to the bottom and created...
It's basically black mayonnaise muck. I mean, and it doesn't smell. It just smells like an earthy,
Sure. Yeah.
organic smell.
I mean, you can... It smells like anything in the water.
There's no life left. The species diversity is gone. The species that we do typically see in here are species that are able to withstand low oxygen levels for an extended period of time.
To help mitigate the problem, the town, in coalition with the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, has spent years planting millions of oysters in the water every year. Some oyster condos are now abandoned in the Mashpee River, but others are flourishing further along the waterway in the Pompanesett Bay.
And this is what's called an oyster condo.
Dozens of the condos can be seen lined up from the sky. The bivalves act as filters, absorbing the excess nitrogen and phosphorus, incorporating it into their shells, and cleaning up the water.
So these really are the workers that are doing all the effort right now.
Correct.
What do we have right here?
These are oysters, or eastern oysters. They're able to filter up to 50 gallons of water per day.
This effort is helping, and it allows the Wampanoag and others to harvest and sell the shellfish, which are safe to eat.
Oh, you gotta keep the juice.
Oh, cheers. All right. Cheers. There you go. Delicious.
But these creatures can only help so much.
From the studies and the results that we've seen, it is significant in their removal. It's just that we need more of them in the area.
And that's where another effort comes in. The town of Mashpee has allocated more than $50 million to start phase 1 of a sewer system and treatment plant. More than 400 homes will be converted to start, and hopefully that change will begin to heal the majestic waters.
Coming up, the changing climate in one of the most remote areas on Earth, the Woods Hole technology used to study penguins and their ecosystem.
Plus, the past predicting the future, how whaling diaries from hundreds of years ago are being used to investigate global weather patterns.
WBZ's Earth Day Climate Special is brought to you by Safety Insurance.
We're here at the New England Aquarium with the southern rockhopper penguins, a species vulnerable to climate change, but there are other species that are in danger of extinction.
And understanding what that change means to us starts in one of the least inhabited parts of the planet. We spoke to one researcher from Woods Hole using robots to study the now endangered emperor penguin.
The weather today is pretty nice. We had about -10. So it was a good day to go out and actually go to the penguin colony.
While Daniel Zitterbart calls Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution home most of the year, 7 days of travel and 5 flights later takes him to Atka Bay, Antarctica, a place so remote, emperor penguins outnumber humans 160 to 1. All these birds, they tell us a story, about the health of our environment.
The emperor penguin is a sentinel for the state of the ecosystem of the Southern Ocean. They go out into the ocean and they swim and they forage and come back with information about where did they go, how much food did they find, how are they doing. And if emperor penguins are doing bad, the ecosystem is doing bad.
Not so much a canary in a coal mine, but rather a penguin in polar air, giving a pulse of the health of the Southern Ocean.
Protecting the emperor penguin ultimately means protecting the Southern Ocean, and protecting the Southern Ocean means that climate change will happen slower.
In recent years, the Southern Ocean has been called a sleeping giant, one that's starting to awaken. Preliminary data for Antarctica's 2023 summer ice extent shows a new record low, driven by warming oceans and melting glaciers.
We are way past it will change, but we have to be able to adapt. Our job is really to provide the best data we can to make pressure to be able to create protected areas so the ecosystem has more time to adapt. It will have to adapt.
Collecting that data begins when about 300 penguin chicks are microchipped each year, the same technology that vets use to chip our cats and dogs. To track the animals is the really difficult part. Enter the Echo unmanned ground vehicle.
Echo is basically a robot that drives around, detect penguins, slowly approach them, try to scan them, see if it's one we tagged or not, then go away, find the next penguin, and scan it again.
The penguins don't seem to mind this rover in their territory.
They are really relaxed about it as long as you're slow. So we have to drive very slow, but the good thing is that a robot doesn't get bored or tired.
Zitterbart hopes the success of Echo translates into more research for other animals without direct human interaction.
Our aim is to be able to use that technology we develop here and bring it to other species.
And while branching out to other animals may be years away, Zitterbart likes to take things day by day.
I learn something new every day. I fail every day. We try something every day, and basically every day we fail again. But we make tiny little baby steps, and those baby steps are very rewarding. We educate the next generation of hopefully scientists and engineers.
We're here at the Boston Tea Party Ships and Museum, where centuries ago, ships just like this one traveled the seas with a logbook of sorts, a diary that recorded all sorts of information, like the sights seen, stories on board, and many times, even weather reports.
Yeah, those simple observations are now giving scientists a fresh look at weather patterns from years past, and they may hold the key to unlocking our climate future.
Man versus whale, an age-old tale. Today, whaling is largely forbidden. Scores of whalers set sea from right here in New Bedford with dreams of catching the big one. Now, hundreds of years later, historians and climate scientists are studying their journeys and have discovered a whale of a find.
Every vessel, and it's not just whalers, it's pretty much any vessel that's a seagoing vessel, they keep a daily logbook.
Consider it a diary, a legal document of the wild adventures that whalers encountered that lasted months to even years.
It was the one document that they tried to save if ever the ship ran into a problem. They're recording any important incidents that happen on board. They're recording when they catch a whale. Multiple times a day, they're recording the weather.
Between the ink and drawings,
the light breeze from the south.
Priceless data was being observed.
They go everywhere in the world's oceans, and they're gathering weather data that you can't get anywhere else. And that is scientifically gold data.
The world's largest collection of whaling logbooks and journals are right here at the New Bedford Whaling Museum. They have over 2,500, dating back to 1668. And researchers have found, as they're all handwritten, that has its challenges.
This is not machine readable information. It's all handwritten. Computers can't analyze this.
Researchers have combed through over 120 logbooks so far, gathering key information like latitude, longitude, and wind data. But the technology wasn't what it is today. Wind speed was estimated by sailors' visual observations.
The words that they used had a definite meaning. The Beaufort wind scale goes very high. It's a force 12 is a hurricane, essentially. And we don't have a lot of recordings of that. And a significant portion of whalers, never made it back to port. And those are ones that probably, some of them recorded the most hairy weather conditions.
The ones that did return, their weather reports are being implemented into modern-day climate computer models.
So one of the questions we had is, well, how does the wind system that we see today compare to the whalers' time 200 years ago?
Scientist Caroline Umenhofer specializes in wind patterns over the Indian and Southern Ocean, an area with limited historical weather data, but a popular area for whalers to travel.
This very strong belt of westerly winds that go all the way around Antarctica, and they were known as the Roaring 40s because they are located near 40 degrees south.
Whalers use that to pass through the tip of South Africa and move quickly to the Pacific Ocean.
And what we see is actually that there has been a southward shift, and the whalers that were recording it really as the Roaring 40s. The strongest winds now are more in the 50s, so it should probably be more the Furious 50s.
A change that has impacted parts of the world that depend on those westerly winds to transport rain to the area.
Leaving southern Australia and southern Africa high and dry.
And researchers still have thousands of weather reports to uncover in logbooks that could give more clues to our climate future locally.
We're really keenly aware of what's going on with the climate today and issues with climate change. And in order to understand better what is happening to our climate in the present, it's very, very important to have these long data sets, a long arc of understanding about the weather going back hundreds of years.
Standing up for Mother Earth by planting trees.
Coming up after the break, we'll introduce you to a Ugandan climate activist becoming Africa's Johnny Appleseed.
WBZ's Earth Day Climate Special is brought to you by Safety Insurance.
Trees are such an important part of our climate conversation, with a single one drawing in about 50 pounds of CO2 each year.
I spoke to a climate youth activist from Uganda who turned a simple challenge into a life-changing movement.
You need to understand that the impacts of climate change have no borders.
24-year-old Nyambi Morris knows firsthand how devastating our changing climate can be.
I am a climate migrant. Back in 2008, there was flash flooding that occurred in eastern Uganda.
The floods displaced 400 people, his family among them.
We lost a home and a farm. So when we came to Kampala, things became extremely difficult to annex, and that my dad had to leave us. He disappeared, he abandoned us and left me with a single mom of 3. So since then, life has been extremely difficult.
But Nyambi turned adversity into ambition, hitting the streets to demand climate action.
I realized that maybe I can do something, but it wasn't easy to go to street. It wasn't easy to join them. I was nervous.
You found a calling to do that.
These days, Nyambi hits the streets in a different way, visiting schools across the country.
We have a mission of reaching over 1.2 million young people. And the mission here is to equip, educate, and empower them with knowledge concerning climate change. Our main focus is to make sure we bring more young people in this fight.
And his latest endeavor of greening up Uganda by planting trees started with a challenge.
I'm going to hand over these trees
to put actions to words.
I used to go join different people. We could plant and plant and plant. So for me, I was counting that at least here, today we planted this and I planted this. Today we planted this and planted this. So I realized that it was becoming addiction.
A fixation on forest may be an understatement. Nyambi's group has planted over 50,000 trees, with him personally planting about 22,000.
What does that mean to you to put that into the ground, to see it start to grow? I mean, what feeling does that give you?
For me, it gives me a responsibility. If you don't have a responsibility to protect the planet, then you shouldn't be alive, because it is without a planet you will not survive.
All these pursuits are not without problems. In 2021, Nyambi was detained by police. His phone was confiscated and he was beaten.
Here, speaking the truth can lead you to be arrested, kidnapped, disappear, killed. But in other countries, you have that freedom. So use it knowing that you are standing for those that can't stand.
What do we want? Climate action!
When we are to solve this global crisis, we need to come together, we need to listen to each other, we need to respect each other without excluding the conversation. It may be me speaking, but it doesn't mean what I'm talking about is not happening in your country.
Looking good and staying sustainable.
The new push to reuse, recycle, and slow it all down when it comes to fashion.
WBZ's Earth Day Climate Special is brought to you by Safety Insurance.
Whether you're shopping for fun or necessity, the choices you make at checkout have an impact on our climate.
There are many stores, even right here on Newberry Street, that are changing the way they produce their products, hoping you purchase with a purpose.
There's so much fashion waste out there because we overconsume. Clothes just end up in landfills.
According to the EPA, 13.1 million tons of textiles are trashed each year in the United States, with the average American throwing away 65 pounds annually.
Generations ago, people did not consume at the rate that we're consuming at. And what we know is that makers and the environment cannot sustain the level of our consumptions.
Mass native Carly Burson is the founder of Laud the Label, a sustainable brand that honors the earth and the maker. She's passionate about social justice and the environment, and her company works with artisans around the world. She urges consumers to slow down and step away from what is called fast fashion.
Fast fashion really denotes like lower quality, low priced, mass produced, and machine made garments that truly quickly and purposefully end up in landfills.
According to the UN Environment Program, the fast fashion industry is the second biggest consumer of water and is responsible for about 10% of global carbon emissions.
Slow fashion is also not just a way of doing business, it's truly like an activist movement that advocates for environmental and social justice.
Slow fashion brands tend to use organic, recycled, eco-friendly materials and offset emissions of production and use fair trade practices. Carly also suggests there are other sustainable options like borrowing clothes, renting, or consignment.
Accessibility is a huge problem in the sustainable fashion space. Secondhand buying and thrifting is a great way to consume responsibly. Consumers need to be more thoughtful about who they're willing to support, where they're willing to put their money, and doing more research before supporting a brand.
And there's one company that's shooting for the moon when it comes to reducing the impact of climate change.
If we can send a man to the moon, then we can make a shoe that has zero carbon footprint.
A first of its kind moonshot will be revealed in June, and you'll notice the two O's are actually zeros in the product name.
So it's 0.0 represents the carbon footprint of the product.
Hana Kajamura is the head of sustainability at Allbirds. It's a footwear brand that is dedicated to reducing emissions in the fashion industry.
The goal of reversing climate change through better business, and maybe more specifically figuring out how to make products that with zero impact and ultimately that have a positive impact on the environment.
Allbirds does that by modeling sustainability in their products on a number of platforms, from working directly with farmers, using electric trucking or biofuel and ocean shipping, to sourcing traceable and renewable materials.
The foam that makes up the sole of all of our shoes, when we first started, that material, it's called EVA, and it's historically made from oil. And we figured out a way to make it out of sugarcane instead, which helps to reduce the carbon footprint of all of our products dramatically.
Which Allbirds proudly displays in their store like calories on a food label. You know the carbon footprint of the product you're purchasing.
Yeah, we're talking about carbon footprints of shoes, but I think that is just the gateway to a broader conversation about carbon footprints of our lives and what we can do as individuals to minimize our own impact, and customers can support businesses who are going that extra step.
What we wear and how we recycle is just one piece of the puzzle to solving climate change. And here at WBZ, we'll show you potential solutions.
Showcasing stories that need to be told and bringing you the latest research and findings.
Thank you for joining us for this WBZ Earth Day Climate Special. I'm meteorologist Sarah Robleski.
And I'm meteorologist Jacob Wycoff, wishing you all blue skies.